Welcome back, Inebri-art. Welcome to the show. I am excited today. Our guest is I'm a fan of from watching Critical Role, and you might know her from Overwatch. Anjali Bhimani, welcome to the show.
Yes, very
Yeah.
excited.
Yeah. Like I said, I think I can't remember if I saw you first on Candela Obscura or the Unlimited series.
Mhm.
But you kind of popped back onto Critical Role recently, and it
Yes.
was I don't want to do like spoilers, but it was kind of like an end of a chapter, end of an
Oof.
error,
It
pretty
was it
heavy.
was it was a lot. Yeah, yeah. It was basically the story from Exandria Unlimited sort of came back and we got to see what was going on there with with the Crown Keepers simultaneously as campaign 3 with Bell's Hells. I mean, we're starting to see what was going on with both of them. And again, trying to be spoiler free, but just be prepared. It's heartbreaking, but makes sense. And especially for the storyline that we sent off one of our characters on,
Mhm.
it was as it was supposed to be. But I definitely like the next morning I was wrecked. It
Were
wasn't even
you
the night of.
were you a gamer before, or did they bring you in
So
and
yes,
like?
yes, I absolutely was. But so here's sort of the story. I started playing D&D when I was 8
Mhm.
because my brother gave me the basic set and I fell in love with it. And then I played through probably through high school, which, and then I also started playing all the Forgotten Realms video games along with other video games, obviously. So when I went to college, it was a lot harder to find the time and find people to play with. And at the time, back in my day, it wasn't so popular. So finding people to play with, you sort of had to kind of like sneaky things. So I stuck with the video game versions of it, all the RPGs that were out there, Baldur's Gate and Shadows of Amun and all of that stuff, Tales of the Sword Coast. And then probably around the time of my like the end of my first Broadway show. I don't know why I made this decision. Like looking back, I really don't know why. But I was like, you have to stop. You're spending too much time gaming. You need to focus on like more serious things. And so then began what I call the dark days of gaming in my life.
Yeah.
And I got to come back to it because I was cast in Overwatch. And so now it became something that I was on the other side of and I wanted to be back in the experience of doing it. Now, unfortunately, I suck at first person shooters. I kind of stopped playing right when first person shooters came on the scene. So I'm not good at Overwatch or Apex Legends. Neither one of my own games am I great at. Even Fallout, I'm not great at. Those games, like I love the games, I love the stories, I love the lore, but I'm not great at them. But because of doing a cast meetup that Blizzard had put together the first year that Overwatch came out, I got to meet Matt and Marisha from Critical Role, and we got to talking about D&D and about how much I miss it and all of that. And next thing you know, Marisha had um, hit me up. They were still at Geek and Sundry at the time, and she had hit me
Mhm.
up saying, "Hey, we're doing this show at Geek and Sundry. My friend Ivan Van Norman is going to be the game master. I think you'd be great for it. Would you be interested?" And I was like, "Oh, I'll try it out. Let's
Was
let's
that
go see what this is." It was
was that
called
the
We're Alive
paranoia?
Frontier.
Oh,
No, it's
okay.
called We're Alive Frontier. It was, and I was like, I'm not into zombie horror, generally
Yeah.
speaking. So I was a little bit on the fence. But the second I went in for like the game test or the whatever you want to call it, basically my audition, I
Yeah.
was hooked. I was absolutely hooked. And even coming back to the actual real play, because in this game there was permadeath, which meant if your character dies, you're off the show.
Yeah.
And no one wants to get kicked off a show. No one wants to get kicked off the
Of
island.
course.
So I was
Yeah.
lowering my expectations and like, okay, I'm probably gonna die in the first episode. And by like 30 minutes into the first episode, I was like, no one will die on my watch. And it became like so gripping and so much a part of who I was. And I forgot that feeling. I forgot that immersion that you get to have while also simultaneously getting to play with your friends and to enjoy their virtuosity at storytelling and build something that didn't exist and wouldn't have existed just from our own imaginations because we needed the randomness of the dice and we
Yeah.
needed the randomness of the gameplay system. So that was it. That was the gateway drug. And then I did a show with Critical Role using the Savage World system, and then I did their Doom one shot, and then Exandria Unlimited, and then Candela, and then hopping back on campaign 3. And I cannot stress enough how incredible they are, both as individual human beings, but as the juggernaut that they've created. Because I think a lot of people look at them and they're like, oh, I want to repeat that. And I don't, there are so many special ingredients that went into what they created. And it came so clearly out of love for the games and love for each other and taking care of other people and being caring about how they leave the world after they leave. And there's just a heart. They built that from something very organic and very heartfelt. And you can see it as they can, even now when they're blowing up all over and doing all these amazing things, you can still see that heart in everything they do. And I think that's why I certainly love working with them so much, but that's why I love them so much as people, because their heart is all over everything they do.
Yeah, they just seems, and it's one of those hard things where it's like you get to feel like you know them because they're so genuine. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know them; they're celebrities, but they just seem so genuine and you know so willing to kind of put themselves out there in the truest
Yeah.
form of themselves. It's
Yeah.
really sweet.
And
You
it's also,
mentioned,
and it's
oh,
not easy
yeah,
because I'm just want to pop this out there
sure, sure.
too, because again, like for all of the quote unquote celebrities, you put yourself out there online and people know you, but at times people feel like, and I have only experienced a very tiny bit of this, not nearly what they have. And I say this in because I'm so like, I want to just hug them and hold them. A lot of times people, when they feel that relationship with you online and you haven't necessarily met them, they feel a certain ownership over your choices.
Hmm.
And so whether they're creative choices or otherwise. And I think that the fact that they've been able to keep their hearts open through years and years of that is pretty extraordinary. And it's a huge testament to how much they care about what they're doing.
Yeah. Um, so I was doing some basic research. Like I said, I don't try to plan questions, but I stumbled across. It looks like you have a YouTube show now. Is it new or is
Oh,
it just did I just
oh,
discover
I've
it?
had a YouTube show. Which
Okay.
one?
Fun
So
size?
yes, so I am fun size, and so are you is the full title, but we
Yeah.
call it I am fun size for short. So that came out of okay, so when I connected with the Overwatch community
Hmm.
2016 2017, I was so blown away by how supportive and loving and kind and artistic that they were, that I very much wanted to give something back to that community. And there was a particular day that I ran I was like, oh, let me go on Twitter and like put up a fan art Friday. Let's see what happens. And I thought maybe there'd be like 5, 10 pieces of art, but people just sent more and more and more and more. And I was like, okay, you have to give something now. You have to stop. You have to get off your ass. You have to stop worrying about it being perfect. You have to give something now. What do you have to give? And I thought, well, I don't know how anyone else should be running their life, but I do have my own stories that I can share. If people have questions about things that are going on in their own lives that might pertain, my stories might pertain to, I can share those stories and hopefully let them see they're not alone.
Hmm.
So that's how I Am Fun Size was born. I created a public facing email address, Anjali at I Am Fun Size, where people can send in their questions. I specifically requested that they send in questions that they can't already get answers to on the internet, because like you can ask questions about Symmetra, but you can probably find that on the internet. Let's
Right,
ask
right.
questions that you have me here. You have this resource. Ask me what you want to. And it took off. It was such a lovely thing. People really seemed to, the people who would watch and respond, including in public when I would meet them at conventions, seemed to really enjoy that kind of connection. Because again,
Yeah.
nobody wants to hear this is what you should do. I don't want to hear that. You tell me what I should do, I will do the opposite. But everybody wants to
Kind
hear
of
a
the same
good
way.
story,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So if you have a good story for people that may or may not help them, and if it doesn't, great, they can toss it. But if you have a good story to share with people, I think that's a lovely way to let them know you're not alone here. I'm not going through what you're going through, but you're not alone. I'm right here standing beside you. And from that series, I ended up starting a publishing company and publishing my book, I Am Fun Size and So Are You, which came out in 2022.
Oh, that's
So
that's so awesome. Yeah, I just
it
stumbled across it. I'm
is
gonna have to give it like a serious, watch because I
well.
literally like maybe 45 minutes ago. I'm like, I didn't know this existed,
Oh,
which is
amazing. Well,
what the
be
internet is great
gentle.
for. Be
Yes, be
gentle.
gentle, because when I started it, I literally opened up my Mac, turned on photo booth and recorded. Like, the tech is low.
But that's but
But I
that's
am,
that's what I love about the
yeah,
internet.
that's
Like
fine.
when we
No, no,
started our
that's,
podcast, we had like a $60 mic that we were using improperly.
yeah. So, and I think that for me has been a really challenging thing as an artist. And I'm sure you run into this, both as a fine artist, but also as a podcaster. It, I so want things to be, they don't even have to be perfect, but I want them to be a certain level of, when I see things out there and I'm like, oh, it should be as good as that. It should be, the production value should be as good as that, or this should be as good as that. And I find myself veering off track of what the whole point of getting the thing out there is. Um, and so with that one, the fact that Fan Art Friday finally got me to say, I don't care what camera I have. I don't care what microphone I have. People have questions. People have needs. People are coming into my DMs and asking me questions that I don't feel qualified to answer as like a mental health professional, but I can certainly share stories publicly that
Mm-hmm.
might answer that for them. And so yeah, I am not quite as prolific with it as you guys are. I think I got to like 100 episodes
That's a lot,
for
though.
Like That in the Way,
Yeah.
but but it is such a testament. What you guys are doing, this is what I wanted to talk about too. When you told me that you guys are almost, are you at 400 or just past?
We're almost. I kind of lose track.
I can't even. That
We're
is such an extraordinary accomplishment.
high
I don't know if
380.
you know that. I don't know if you know that. Like, everybody starts a podcast. Very few people continue it. Very few people do the consistent work that is required to create that podcast regularly. And I think it's such a testament to the diligence of good artists as well. Because when you, a lot of times when people, start up in an artistic career, they lean into the art and they forget the craft and business. They
Mhm.
forget that there's work involved. They forget that you have to treat this like you treat any other path, which means you have to know what you're doing. You have to practice your skills. You have to get out there and hustle. You have to do all of these things. Um, and that consistency of putting something out there, that's one of the big ones that most of us miss. I know I'm constantly challenged by it.
Yeah. It,
I work really well in short spurts. I wrote the
mhm.
book I wrote the full first draft of the book in 2 weeks, and it's 312 pages long. And I just woke up at 4:30 in the morning, wrote from 4:30 to 8:30, and then that was it. But if it was like, I need to have a writing practice every single day for a year, I don't know that I would have stuck with it, because I don't have that. I shouldn't say I don't have that. I am consistently challenged by that discipline of that regularity and that normalcy that you do. So I just wanted to hand it to you that you guys are doing something
Thank you.
really, really well.
Thank you. And it's one of those, like, we've gone dark twice. Once was at the beginning of COVID because we just didn't know what was going on.
Can't imagine why.
Yeah,
It's not like
and
anything was going on.
once was I needed a month. I was having some, I have
Yeah,
mental issues, is like I feel like everyone, especially creative people, do, and I needed kind of a month to
yeah.
reset. And but I didn't let that be the kind of off ramp, and just kind of jumped
Mm-hmm.
back in. We have so many episodes now where if we kind of miss a week, we can go. We call them barrel aged episodes, where we bring back
You
some
can go back and
episodes. Yeah,
see, that's so smart though. But you have to do that too. You also have to give yourself that break.
yeah,
Every TV show goes on hiatus. You create seasons of things for a reason. It's not just, I don't think people necessarily realize that part of the artistic process is the recovery and the download and the time to really synthesize what you've just created and what you've learned. And you can only do that with a certain amount of space. You can only do that, not just physical space, but mental and emotional space. You can only do that by taking that breather and reassessing, and also just going out and living your life and doing more things that fill the well up so that you can then come back and create more.
that is my struggle right now. My downtime is like less and less, but it's a good thing. The business is growing, but
Yeah, but that is,
it's trying to
I gotta
schedule
hand,
that. Yeah,
yeah, I gotta tell you, it is very much my problem as well.
yeah.
And I think it is, I don't want to discount the uniqueness of both of our situations, but I think it is very much endemic of the situation that we're all in right now with the one of the changes to society that the pandemic had that I wish hadn't happened this way is that because everybody began working from home, the expectation of everybody being available 24 hours a day and the expectation of I have to answer my email. I have
Yeah.
to answer. This is the only way I like, and then coming back to quote unquote normal life and that expectation still being there, that right there, that hustle, 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 go, 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 have to get these notifications, have to do all of this. That's been, it's been hell on my artistic process. I know personally because of precisely what we're talking about, because of not having that downtime. Even meditation feels like a job now.
Yeah.
You know, it used to be the people were like, you should meditate and like, give yourself a break, give your senses, you know, your senses. And I'm like, it feels like now if it feels like something I have to do, it doesn't solve the problem.
Yeah. Let me ask you kind of on this very topic. Um, Someone a while ago asked me to run Dungeons and Dragons events like some of our other events, and my answer was no, that's for me. Like that's my thing. That's not business.
Yep.
And then it came up again recently, and they're like, "Well, how often do you play?" I'm like, "Well, hardly ever." And they're like, "Yeah, and all your D&D stuff would be tax deductible if it was business." I'm like, "All right, now you're like talking to the
Now we're
I
talking.
can write off minis." Um,
And
so
dice.
and dice, yeah. Was there that concern when you started kind of doing gaming in some sort of professional manner that it would kind of take away from that?
It really wasn't because I was so excited by the fact that, oh my God, this is something that I can do with my friends for the world. Like just the concept that this is now something that we can share with the world. Now, yes, there is an expectation and there are production expectations or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And so, but I can always still have a home game if I find the time and find the friends if I want to.
Yeah.
There's still that opportunity. Now, making sure that I find friends who are cool with it being a home game and don't want to post about it or don't want to like turn it into something, that's a challenge, you know, because
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, again, I don't know. I don't know if it comes from like a scarcity mentality or what, but for example, I used to get very mad at my husband, who is a professional musician and
Mm-hmm.
now a podcast producer. We have a production company here in Los Angeles. And whenever I would start to play on the piano or sing or whatever, he would immediately get his marketing brain would pop up because he's brilliant at it. He's
Yeah.
absolutely brilliant at it. And I would get so defensive and I'd be like, no, I just want to make art for me. Can you like I would throw little tiny temper tantrums. But because so much of what I do is for public consumption, I do have that like, what is for me? What am I making for me? And so that challenge is definitely there overall. I don't necessarily feel that way yet about the gaming stuff because I'm not Critical Role or Dimension 20 where I am
Right.
constantly having to do it because there is an expectation and because there are investors and all of that. Like
You
when
get
you
the kind of
create
best
a
of both
business,
worlds.
yeah,
Yeah.
I absolutely do. It's the joy of being a guest star. It's the same thing on television. Like, yes, I want to play a series regular, absolutely, but that means they own me for the entire period of that. I
Mm-hmm.
can't go off and like do another show or do like that's so that and it's a grind a little bit. The joy of being a guest star is, I mean, yes, you have no idea when your next job is, but I'm finally at a point in my career where I can trust that another job will come, which is a lovely thing. That actually happened during the pandemic when I realized, oh wait, maybe I don't have to worry about working. So it's only like 20 years into my career. But knowing that you don't know necessarily where the next job is going to be, you know it's going to come, and you know it's going to be fun, and you know you have agency over what it is because
Mm-hmm.
you can decide whether or not you're going to take all of these things. My problem is I want to do everything. Love doing
I
everything.
love
It's so
saying
much
yes to
fun.
stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my God. It's not just saying yes to stuff. It's just there's so much opportunity now. There's so much opportunity to create that wasn't necessarily there. The technology wasn't there. The access wasn't there. The ability to stream live to hundreds of thousands of people was not there when I first started. So now there's such an opportunity to do that. finding a way to do that that still gives you joy and you don't feel the expectations of public, like all of that, that I think is still the the sort of seesaw that we stay on as artists. I do a
Are
lot of writing just for myself, for sure.
yeah.
But most of that is not necessarily like, I don't, it's not my fiction writing. I haven't done in a long time. I used to tinker around on the piano, but then, now I have nails, so that's not so fun. Um, but yeah, I don't feel that way yet with D&D. Now, I did DM for the first time recently, for the Lego D&D collaboration.
Oh, I didn't even see
That
that.
part,
Yeah.
oh, it's fun. It's
Yeah.
very fun. I hope you had a chance to see it. Um, I had been kicking and screaming and saying no to DMing for years because I was like, I do not want to be in charge of things. I'm in charge of my life. I stage manage my life. Please give me some time to just be a player. And then I DM'd and I was like, oh no, I really like this. So
It,
now I feel like that is going to become another thing that I'm like, well, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it big. I actually do. I am going to be announcing a project in a couple of months. Wow, God, less than a couple of months, that will be coming out hopefully in August. And, kind of a watch this space thing, which is going to be me floundering my way through, something that I'm very excited about. But, um, yeah, there's just too much opportunity to create now. Um, that I don't like saying, to create in new ways.
yeah.
That's the thing. That's the big thing. There are a lot of ways I do. There are a lot of stuff I do say no to because I'm like, yeah, I've already done that. That's cool. Let's give that to someone who hasn't done that. Let's let them have that experience and that excitement. I'm not so into it, you know.
And that's the
Um,
cool thing about now is like any weird, silly idea, like if you take it seriously and you treat it like it could be a job or a side, like, there's a guy who makes sandwiches on TikTok and he's huge,
right?
you know?
It's insane.
Yeah.
It's
So
insane. But
it's,
even that, even social media, I know a lot of people don't want to feel that they have to get followers and have to get reach and all of this stuff. But there is a commodification that has happened from those platforms
mhm.
that makes a lot of people feel like, oh, but I have to do it this way or I have to do it that way. And then it's no fun anymore.
Yeah. And
You
that's what
know,
that's one of Inebri-art's rules. It has to be fun because why
it's
else are we
gotta
wasting
be
our time?
fun. It's
So,
gotta be fun. Yeah, absolutely. So we
well,
started the new podcast for Character Select, which I'm really, really excited about. I don't know if you've heard or seen
I
that, but
haven't. You
I
are
am
busy.
yeah,
Yeah.
I and my dear friend Julia Bianco Scheffling, who is a casting director in video games, she also wrote a book around the same time that I wrote a book about acting. She wrote about acting, the acting and business of, the art of business of acting for video games. That's what it's called. And based on this experience that we had being on a jury for the BAFTA Awards a couple of years ago, we very much wanted the conversations that go on behind the scenes about people's performances and what goes into them from all different lanes of gaming, from art direction to composition to writing to all of it. We wanted people to hear the reverence and the love that their work was being spoken about, and also know that there are so many ways to get into the gaming industry. You don't have to. It's not only the ways that you see publicly. There are so many ways. If you love to do something, chances are you can do it in the gaming.
Yeah.
And so that's how Character Select was born. And Matt Mercer was our first guest. God bless him. So we take the first half to talk about people's journeys and their own careers. And then we take the second part to talk about a performance of their choosing in the gaming world,
Oh,
whether
cool.
theirs or someone else's,
Yeah.
but a performance that they want to break down and say, this is why it was special. So we hear from like composer Austin Wintry, who did Journey and Stray Gods, which I did last year. He came in and he talked about Hector and Manny from Grim. Oh my gosh, now I'm not remembering the second part. But this very like this game that I'd never played and I would never know about. But he talked about it with the love of the music and from that vantage point, in such a cool way that you wouldn't necessarily get to hear usually.
Yep.
Usually it's actors doing the interview, right?
And that's
Performance is not just about us.
yeah, and that's why I do this show. I figure if
Yep.
people hear you and hear your passion and be like, that's a cool person, they're gonna go and check out what you're doing, opposed to you just being like, hey, check out what I'm doing. Hey, check out what I'm doing. And that's kind of
Well, that's
where this
very
came
kind of
from.
you.
So
Also, though, I love that you are giving your listeners a peek into what an artistic life actually is, because you don't have to choose it as a career to be artistic. You don't have to choose it as a career to be a real artist.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to make your full living from your art in order to be an artist. You just have to continue creating and honing your craft and finding ways to do that and finding ways for it to give you joy. And being diligent and all of those things. I am not one of those actors who will say, if there's anything else you can do, you should do it. A lot of people say that. Like, if there's anything else in the world that you would rather do, you should do it because this is hard. You know what else is hard? Brain surgery. No one's telling you can't do that. So if you want to do it, just understand, yes, it's hard. Great, fun, important things that you care about can be hard. But the joy of doing it should theoretically, and eventually a paycheck, sustain you through those hard times in a way that helps you create even more. It should be, that's how ideally the artistic life is.
Outstanding. I can't think of a better way to end other than that sentiment. That was beautiful. Quick plug, where can people go to check out your show? What else you're working on? Do you have your own website? That kind of
people can find me online on the interwebs at Sweet Anj. My handle is SWEEET, 3 E's, ANJ. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at that handle. You can also find Character Select, the Character Select podcast. It's all over the interwebs as well. You can email me at Anjali@IamFunsize.com if you have questions for the I Am Fun Size series. I have a newsletter, so if you feel like knowing where I am in person, I'm heading to Dallas this weekend. I'm heading to a bunch of places, so to meet the community and hang out. So you can get that information there or on my website or on my socials. I tend to make myself very accessible. So really, this is going to sound lame what I'm about to say, but like literally, if you just open a search engine and put in my name, you'll find a way to contact me.
Yeah,
you'll find a way to say hi.
Yeah,
so,
it's one of those. It's silly because I feel like most people know they can just search for someone, but you like to.
Yeah, but the extra step is a pain in the ass. But I do mean if you want to actually connect with me, there are ways to do that too.
Awesome. Anjali, thank you so much. Listeners, we'll be back again next week. We're moving our office this week, so there may be a little hiccup, but hopefully not. So hopefully we'll see you guys again next week. If not, we'll be back in 2 weeks, and we'll see you guys then. And thanks for checking out the show today, listeners. If you enjoyed the content today, you can go over to patreon.com/Inebri-art to support the show. You can join over there for just a few dollars a month and help us provide this fun content that you just checked out. You can also email us at Inebri-art.com with your questions, complaints, and concerns, or you can find us on all social medias at Inebri-art or at Inebri-art6 on Instagram. And also don't forget to check out our other shows, Bar Talk Podcast, Old Colony Cast, Inebri-art, and all the other shows on the Inebri-art Network, which you can find at Inebri-art.com. Thanks again for listening.